So first batch of Transfigured gems came out, and now we know at least partially what to expect from the new season launch. And to be honest, there was something quite weird happening, at least in my opinion. So we're gonna look at them in a little bit. We're gonna check out everything that changed and stuff like that. But there's one little interesting thing here. If you were to look at all the Reddit posts on the Path of Exile Reddit, they are not downvoted. So Reddit is kinda happy with how game's going, and that's, to be honest, that's quite an interesting turn of event. I think that there's still gonna be quite a bunch of people who will be salty about changes, and they didn't just saw their own skill getting nerfed yet, and that's why they are not as mad, because yeah, the system itself is way bigger than just straight out nerfs that were in Expedition, for example, for people to understand what's going on and how's everything changed. But I guess for now we can share everyone can share this happy moment and just figuring out stuff, looking at stuff and things like that. So our first batch is here, Transfigured gems, alongside with all the changes to regular gems, but they are a bit more, they're not vague, they're just a bit more situational. They're not as obvious in terms of what changed and stuff, and it may take me another video to do that. But for today, we're gonna be looking at Transfigured gems, and there is a very, very good chart here that makes you visually appreciate what's going on with gems themselves. But we do have this one table by the PoE Wiki mod on Reddit that summarized everything that happened to gems. And yeah, I guess let's check everything out. So Absolution, fewer minions, Giga Spiritual Aid effect. So Spiritual Aid and just in general, this of Inspiring, it's not, as you can see here, it's all like suffixes to the skill gems, which what this does, it gives you less maximum summon Sentinels of Absolution, but increases and reductions to minion damage also apply to this skill's damage at 200% of their value, which makes you deal damage with this skill itself way more, which can be quite interesting if you're building into some sort of hybrid. And there is another skill like Dominating Blow of Inspiring. So it's the same suffix, the skills work the same, and the increases are the same. So here with Dominating Blow of Inspiring, we do have as well increases and reductions to minion damage also apply to this skill's damage at 250% of their value, which makes it yet again, this will be for someone who wants to combo melee and this summoner build with dominance, for your Dominating Blow to finally do at least some damage with a bunch of additional increases. Will it work? Will you have some sorts of really maximizing damage output, combining minion damage and your own damage? We'll see. But the same thing applies to Absolution, which is quite interesting for sure. Then with our Animate Guardian of Smiting, yeah, it's quite obvious. The Animate Guardian will Invisible Guardian that fights by your side using Smite of Divine Judgment, ignoring weapon restrictions, animating multiple items attached to them to the same Guardian. So yeah, this one, as you can see here, uses Smite without aura and does not have extra life, so it will be easier to kill him, but you can build towards this single minion if you want to try and do stuff like that. So arcs please towards target instead of chain. This Arc of Surgeon, which means that you're hitting one single target and then it beams out of it to all the targets around itself. I don't know how it will work. To be honest, it sounds, and it has, as you can see here, it has way more damage in general, but it doesn't have the multiplier for more chains and stuff like that. And it's not like whenever you don't have beams or for the first target, it will multiply depending on number of beams, and you cannot chain this skill because it will just apply to number of beams. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to do. It's like this burst lightning skill, I guess, but how it will work, We'll see. Then it's Arc of Oscillating. Chains 7 times, still has this more damage with hits and ailments. And as you can see here, Arc 2 less damage. So yeah, the damage numbers on itself is 94 to 530, which is very, very low. And effectiveness of added damage is 60%, which is quite low as well. But more damage per remaining chain, slight different chaining behavior. Secondary chains can hit targets hit by main chains. So yeah, as you can see, it's I guess more of a AoE oriented one. I don't know if they want us to maybe have couple of 6-link or 5-links with skills in order to yeah, like use one against on packs and use second one for single target. I don't know, but in some ways it kind of looks like it. So yeah, there are all situational stuff. Then there's barrage of volley fire. After a short preparation, you fire projectiles repeatedly, and then these projectiles have a small spread and stuff, so you fire projectiles sequentially. For projectiles, the first and final shots of the sequence fire 10 additional projectiles simultaneously. So yeah, it's just the volley fire dual effect applied to this one. Then Blade Blast of Unloading deals spell damage in an area around you. If you have Blade Vortex blades orbiting you, it will detonate each of them in turn, dealing damage again in an area around you for each one. So this one is particular for Blade Vortex blasting with single button, I guess. So more damage, more AoE per BV. Blade detonated only works on BV blades. So yeah, and this is the specific niche case where you can use it. Slower cast, Nova, current behavior. Yeah, so it will just emphasize your playstyle with Blade Vortex, and it will add additional button, which yet again seems more and more like they take this opportunity and try to push us towards using multiple buttons on many different builds, like they want to do in Path of Exile 2. Then Blade Flurry, crit chance per stage instead of damage. Yeah, it's nothing else, to be honest, of incision, as you can see here. So it's quite a simple thing, but that can have big implications on a skill, but it's nothing visual and stuff like that. It's just in general just crit strike. Blade Trap of Greatsword. So you're basically throwing a trap that creates your two-sworded swords, and they circle and damage enemies. And then Blade Trap of Laceration, the same thing, but it swings your 2 copies of equipped Dagger Claw or one-handed sword, and here we do have more damage with bleeding and chance to cause bleeding, which supposedly makes it better for bleeding with multiple stacks on enemies and stuff like that, but we'll see how it will work. There is, to be honest, it's such a wide opportunity for more builds to emerge for sure. This change is very, very cool, and it's definitely alternative quality gems was kind of the same, but they were less impactful, way less impactful, and they've created way less completely new builds. There were some cool stuff like Poison Spark, for example, but not to the extent that we do have here, and there's a visual change as well, so it's literally way more skills. Then Bladefall of Volleys, and here we do have more damage crit chance per volley, no lingering blades. So if you don't like the playstyle with blasting blades, then you do have more puristic skills as well, which is yet again, it's more of a playstyle additions, which I admire for sure. And then Bladefall of Impaling, so increased impale effect, critical strikes impale enemies on hit. And we don't really have that much impaling on spells in the game available, which this one creates in particular for sure. Crit strikes do not deal extra damage, but you still can ramp your single target damage, especially with all the impales and stuff, which is quite an interesting thing to do. And it's definitely something new for you to play around. Then a Bladestorm of Uncertainty. And this one, we're gonna go here, random Bladestorm type. So yeah, as it says, of uncertainty, perform a spinning attack damaging enemies around you, creating a random blade storm. And then there's all those sand blends blade storms that in general they move and they blind, and then bleeding ones that are blood ones. So it's quite funny. In general, we'll see how it will go. This one has way more like niche uses in my opinion, because of you randomizing mechanics that you're proccing. Blight of Contagion we've already saw, so it spreads contagion in general. And then Blight of Atrophy. So apply a debuff to enemies, the chaos damage. Enemies who aren't already debuffed by Blight are also hindered. And you do have here that a debuff can have up to 20 layers of damage, reduced life regeneration rate, damage, and all those stuff. But here is the interesting thing. So base duration here is 5 seconds, and the base secondary duration is 1. And here we do have base duration is 1 second, and secondary is 4 seconds, which is and here we have way less damage in general. So as we can see here, bigger duration, less max stacks, more damage spread by contagion. And here debuff reduces life regen, longer hinder, less duration, less damage as well, which indicates that the second Blight of Atrophy is more of a support thing for you to being cast by your totems, or maybe just in general like a supportive utilitarian skill. And Blight of Contagion is more for dealing damage, spreading stuff, clearing, and like that. Blink Arrow of Bombarding Clones. So you fire an arrow. When the arrow lands, you're teleported there, and the clone is a minion that uses your bow and quiver to fire arrows into the air to land around a target. So it's Rain of Arrows, basically. They use Rain of Arrows, which is interesting for sure. And yet again, way more opportunity for people to scale different stuff, to scale AoE damage, to scale projectiles and stuff. It's all increases potential for different builds to emerge, and that's why I wouldn't say that you can believe all these starting builds guides. You can believe some of them because some things still not changed and will be pretty good, but there is so much potential in here that you can't really predict how good it will be. Then Blink Arrow of Prismatic Clones, and they just fire random elemental arrows. It's elemental hit. They use elemental hit. Now, a Bone Shatter of Complex Trauma. This one is very interesting. You lose all trauma on reaching 10 trauma. You gain the first time this attack hits an enemy. You take physical damage. Pulse has increased area of effect, and you do have more damage per trauma as well. And then there's Bone Shatter of Carnage. So here we do have cap of 10, and here we do have no trauma Bone Shatter. So it works like original Bone Shatter with just additional flat fees there, a reduced enemy stun threshold, chance to double stun, and Pulse has increased area of effect per stun duration as well. But there is no trauma stacks generating here. If you didn't like that mechanic, I don't know if people will use it, to be honest, because of how trauma was the thing that was pushing Bone Shatter in general. So but stun buff there is as well, more damage effectiveness, but there's not that much. And trauma resets, here trauma resets at 10 stacks, faster trauma scaling, take more damage, so just less stacks. For slower builds, it may probably be more powerful as well. And then there's Burning Arrow. There's Burning Arrow of Vigor, which scales from your maximum life. Deals added fire damage equal to your maximum life, then converts fire damage, ignites, more damage with ignite. This one may be a sub skill for all your Righteous Fire builds and other builds that may use some automated sorts of or just parallel sorts of ignite burning damage and stuff like that. So definitely an interesting thing to do for tanky characters. it opens up a new way for you to play it in hardcore probably too. I guess some people will try it and test it, how it works and how it scales well or not well. It all depends, but it is definitely an interesting thing. And then Caustic Arrow of Poison, which Caustic Arrow, it does not create the lingering chaos damage over time thing. It's just deals chaos damage in an area on impact, and then it has 40% chance to poison on hit. And there's only flat chaos damage and conversion, so no damage over time baseline, which is a very cool thing. That it's a poisonous AoE skill for archers, which this one seems like one of the most straightforward and interesting things here. Then there's Cleave of Rage, so gain rage if the skill hits any enemies, but you have to use it both with axe and sword, only dual wielding, additional radius per rage. Cold Snap of Power, so power charges instead of frenzy charges, and creates a sudden burst of cold in targeted area, damaging enemies. No cold dot as well, only momentum cold damage. So for self cast, maybe for the cast on crit as well, it can be interesting. We'll see. Cooldown can be bypassed by expending a power charge. It's definitely more cold skills that are not tied to Frostbolt is always cool with me. Specifically, I love cold in general, and this one feels quite cool. Consecrated Path of Endurance, so more attack damage in more area, not increased attack damage and area of effect per endurance charges, which means that for tanky builds, this one increases itself quite highly. It still deals up more damage to hits that are closer. It has probably less effectiveness, damage effectiveness and stuff like that. I'm not so sure in this case in particular, but just in general, scaling with endurance charges means that Juggernauts and to some extent Chieftains probably as well, but in general, someone who generates lots of endurance charges and can get a lot of endurance charges will have big AoE with this skill, and that is very cool. Then Contagion of Subsiding unleashes Vile Contagion on enemies. Debuff spreads to other enemies, but each time it spreads, it only deals 3/4 as much damage as before. Spreads when affected enemies die. So and you can see here that Contagion more dot does of 3/4 dot increased instead each time it spreads, and slower cast. So again, interesting changes. I'm not a Contagion main by any means, so I'm not so familiar with how it will affect everything. And then there's Contagion of Transference. Unleashes a Vile Contagion on enemies, dealing chaos damage over time. If an enemy is hit while affected by Contagion, the debuff spreads to other enemies. And we see here that this one has way higher base chaos damage, this one has way lower one. Still modifiers apply to the skill damage. Base radius here is a bit less, and then it spreads in a different way with hitting enemies, which is quite interesting. So you need to combine it with some other skills that will hit enemies. Then Crackling Lance of Branching. So this one is quite interesting. So basically, Crackling Lance of Branching is the only the version without intensity stacks. So you're dealing this beam that branches with different trees of lightning on enemies. It has 700 to 2000 damage, and then there's this one that 840 and 2500 release a concentrated beam which deals lightning damage to enemies in a long area in front of you. So this one is you're just using intensified version of Crackling Lance, and it has some more damage, and it has some additional maximum effect of shock, which can be powerful as well. That's quite interesting. It's a bit of a shame that they didn't came up with something more interesting, because these two effects, they are already present on the base skill, and here you can just take one of them forever. I don't know, still quite cool. Could have been something else, but still quite cool. Cremation of Exhuming. A targeted corpse explodes, dealing area damage and turning into a volcanic geyser and stuff like that, which will repeatedly unleash projectiles subsequently over the surrounding area and detonate nearby corpses for a duration. Corpse explosions are not affected by modifiers to spell damage. So these two versions of cremation. So here's the volcano one, maximum of 6 geysers at a time, fires projectiles faster and stuff. And here we do have maximum of 1 geyser at a time. Explosions deal base fire damage equal to percentage of corpse maximum life, and here we don't have it. And here we do have way higher baseline fizz damage in general. Here we do have some effectiveness of added damage. Here it's not present at all. So it's, yeah, and you can see here corpse explosions are not affected by modifiers to spell damage and cannot be reflected. It's quite an interesting thing. It's for sure. But here we just create a volcanic geyser at a location which will repeatedly unleash projectiles over the surrounding area. So you don't need a corpse in general with the cremation of volcano. And let's see here. Let's cremation max 1 geyser explodes nearby corpse while firing projectiles. Yeah, so it's all phantasmal, slower cast. And here we do have shorter duration, 6 geysers, no corpse needed. Interesting and definitely a welcome thing. I don't know why it's called cremation if there's no corpse. Just volcano would have been probably a bit better in terms of the name, but whatever. Then Cyclone of Tumult. Yeah, with Cyclone, if you didn't know, the baseline changes are that the Cyclone does not gain stages. It just has a bigger area, if I'm correct, and stuff like that. This one in particular, more attack speed, less movement speed per stage. Yeah, channeling buff. So you will have less and less movement per stage. You lose stages while you're not channeling it and stuff like that. But you will still get increased area of effect per stage as well, and more more attacks speed per stage, and yeah, area of effect will now be just constant without needing to get it higher. Here's a plus 0.1 meters radius per stage. Yeah, here it persists with regular Cyclone. If I'm correct, it doesn't. Then there's 2 versions of Detonate Date of Scavenging. So this one cannot target corpses that have been created by skills and have way higher damage, but still less damage with ailments. Ignites probably wouldn't love it that much. And there's Detonate Dead of Chain Reaction. So corpses chain, their explosions chain, and this will continue to target other corpses in the area with a shorter delay between each one until it runs out of corpses or has destroyed 8 corpses. So this one will just in general be better clearing stuff, but we'll see how it will work. And here we do have just way more damage in general. And this one does not have baseline damage as well, while this one still has some flat fire on it. Discharge of Misery. Discharge all the characters' charges to deal elemental damage to nearby enemies. More area of effect per charge removed. Again, more area of effect. And chance to deal damage without removing charges as well. Do I know? Yeah, no cooldown, less damage, less AoE, no ailment penalty. So this is the Discharge of Misery in general, which is quite interesting. And then 2 Divine Ires. So Divine Ire of Holy Lightning creates a Nova when it bursts. So whenever you're building your stages, it damages enemies still while you're channeling it. So it works like regular Divine Ire in that sense. So still all those beams are going off. And then when you release it, it's burst around you. And then with Divine Ire of Disintegration, it does not do any damage whenever you're building it up, and then it fires in a beam with I guess higher damage, increased beam width and stuff like that. So it's just this beam oriented version of Divine Ire, and let's check it out here. So more damage, damages more nearby enemies, less AoE, deals damage in a Nova, more damage, no enemies hit while charging big scale Impaling. So this one is for big burst fires, and First Diviner is more for AoE clear steel, stuff like that. Dominating Blow of Inspiring we've already talked about. Double Strike of Impaling, yet again, we do have Killing Blows cause impales on enemies to reflect damage to surrounding enemies, so it will help you with clearing. Otherwise it has chance to impale and increased impale effect in general. Otherwise still a double strike. And then Double Strike of Momentum performs 2 fast strikes with a melee weapon gaining stages, which cause this skill to attack faster, and then you lose all those stages when you move. So this one wants you to stay longer at one place, and maximum 10 stages with 14% more attack speed for each one, which means that 140% more attack speed. How it will look, I don't know. It will probably be quite crazy, but still, yeah, it's quite interesting. Iteration is kind of like a channeling skill, because it requires you to stay in order to get all the benefits, even though it's not a channeling skill. But there's a lot of different changes, a lot of different things that we're gonna get in this particular update, and that's just from A to C. From A to D, because they're going alphabetical, and not even all gems are included here. Many are skipped. We will have just a big rebalance of things, and I think many new builds will come up as OP ones. And Labyrinth probably will be quite important. Yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you're having a good time. Bye.